Hi, and welcome to Cosmic Consciousness with Cassia. On this channel, we discuss all aspects of the ascension process. I have a variety of services that I offer to assist in your awakening journey, and you can find those listed in the description box below. So today we're going to be doing a different kind of video. I've had some requests from people wanting to know more about my own personal spiritual journey and just more about me in general. And so I was thinking about different ways to do this and just different things that I want to talk about and make videos about. And I really wanted to make videos about finding your life purpose and your life path and helping people to do that, because that's one of the major things that I strive to assist people with, is finding that place in the world, finding their purpose, finding their passion, as well as finding their empowerment and becoming whole within themselves. And the reason that, and healing, of course, right? This is all a healing journey. And the reason that I'm so passionate about these things is because of my own personal experience with them. And sort of, you know, the thing that I've learned and the thing that a mentor that I work with, who also has a YouTube channel that he just started. His name is Glenn Jones. It's Glenn and Heidi's Healing Hearts. They're both amazing people. They're just getting started, but if you guys want to check them out, I have no doubt that in the future they'll have some really cool stuff to offer. But one thing that he always said to me was, we teach that which we most need to learn. And so as I am teaching these things, right, I'm learning them as well. And I have been learning them throughout the course of my lifetime. And so I'm going to try a bunch of different videos with you guys at different times. Comment, let me know what kind of videos you like, which ones are resonating with you, and I'll do more of those types of videos in the future. And so I may do just a much more abbreviated type of video around finding your life purpose that just talks more, it's more like bullet point, more matter of fact, like boom, boom, boom kind of thing. This is going to be more of like I might call this story time, I'm not sure, these type of videos, where I talk about my own journey and my own story through how I came to find. And remember, I'm still finding, I'm still defining, I'm still learning about what my life purpose is. That's always evolving. But how I found and came to the point that I'm at now with living my purpose, which is what I do full time now, which is absolutely amazing. And that was always a dream of mine. And it was a long road getting here. It really was, especially in the beginning, really not knowing what that was. And so anytime, if we talk about, you know, someone says like, I want to hear about your spiritual journey, right? Like, what does that mean? Like, our entire life is a spiritual journey, and everything that happens to us, everything that shapes us, everything that we then have to, like, all of these roles that we take on, all of these identities that we take on, that we then ultimately have to discard, which is the funny part, right? In order to find the truth of ourselves. But all of this makes us, all of this is all a spiritual journey. Every single aspect, everything that we go through. There is nothing, I say this a lot, right? There is nothing that is not spiritual, because we are spiritual. So every aspect of our life is spiritual. Everything about our journey through this incarnation is spiritual, because we are spiritual beings. It cannot be anything other than that. And so I guess when we're looking at the life purpose, I would go back and I would sort of look at my life and sort of what led me and all the things that sort of built up to create and bring me to where I am now. And so I didn't really know. When I was younger, I didn't feel like there was a purpose. And I don't just mean a purpose for me. I mean a purpose for life in general. It felt very empty. It felt very meaningless. And I don't know exactly where that originally came from, but I definitely remember having that feeling, especially when I moved toward my teenage years, my young adulthood, I guess you would say. It just, everything felt very empty. When I was a child, my mother, she no longer identifies with the Christian religion, but at the time it was part of kind of how she was brought up, and so she wanted us to have some introduction to faith. She's gone a very different and very unique path now, and that's her story, so I won't share that. But yes, she practices a lot more. She's a lot more like pulling from the different modalities and the different things that we talk about on this channel now. I'll say is where I'll put that, but originally, you know, she did bring us to church just to give us some sort of, you know, that's the cultural norm, right? That's sort of what we associate with. And she did have a lot of friends there. She did a lot of community service through them. She worked for them for a while, doing different things for the community. And so there was a sense of community there. And I did have a good friend of mine that went there also, although that really wasn't, we were friends in all aspects of our lives. Our parents were best friends. And so it wasn't like we met through the church or anything like that. But like, I had some people there that I knew. And we would go to Sunday school and all of that. And I just remember never connecting with anything that they were teaching us. It just didn't resonate with me. I couldn't, when I was younger, connect to like the idea of unconditional love and the idea of Jesus as an ascended master and all of the things that I understand now and sort of the little nuggets of truth that exist within all religions. To me, it was just like a bunch of really far-fetched sounding stories that didn't really resonate with me. And it just, the whole thing felt strange. I wasn't super into it. And so I never really took much from that. And I thought that in order to believe in God, you had to believe in these stories that they were telling you, and you had to believe everything. Like, in order to believe in God, you had to believe in everything that they were saying in the Bible. And I was like, yeah, I don't believe that. I don't believe that a man got eaten by a whale and lived in his stomach for 7 days, and just like stuff like that. Like, I was just like, that's not adding up to me. It was like I was looking at it from a very logical point of view, and I was just like, no. And now I understand these things for what they are, which is stories, right? Stories that have a deeper spiritual meaning, I guess you would say. But at the time, it wasn't my cup of tea. And so I was like, well, if I don't believe this, then I guess I can't believe any of that. So maybe there is no God, there is no anything, and we're just here kind of aimlessly floating through space. And that to me felt very hopeless. It wasn't a good feeling. It wasn't a good way, because then when you look at life like that, you have to look at everything that goes on in the world and take it at face value. And you have to look at this one lifetime and be like, this is my existence. I'm organic matter that is just born and then dies and goes through these motions. And like, I could see the motions that people were going through in life. I was very aware as a child. I was probably a little bit more serious, just because I really saw and observed. I was very quiet. At least the way I remember myself. And so, like, I observed a lot of things. I saw a lot. And what I saw didn't feel good. I was just like, this is all there is? Like, what is the point of this? And so it was a very nihilistic kind of outlook that I had as a young adult. And I'm not really sure when that started shifting, honestly. There was just a point where it naturally kind of started shifting for me, and I started opening up and becoming curious about other things. And I'm really not sure when that was. I'm not sure if that was when I was in my 20s, older as a teenager maybe. I don't really know, but at some point I became intrigued by different things like energy and chakras and different stuff like that, and I would do little bits and bouts of research here and there. I actually collected crystals and gemstones, and I didn't even realize that I was collecting them. I got really into working with crystals probably like 5 or 6 years ago. And as I did, all of a sudden I realized that I had amassed a whole collection of crystals. I didn't even know what they were, and I had no idea where they had really come from. They had just sort of come to me over time. It was like unconsciously I was doing these things, but I wasn't really aware that I was connected into it, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I mean, as a young adult, I did feel very hopeless, and I dealt with some, I guess you would say, sad or traumatic type events. My father died when I was quite young, when I was in 8th grade. So I was about 13 years old when that happened. And over the course of the years, just like pairing that with this nihilistic outlook of life, things felt very bleak. And I definitely, I got into that depressive kind of energy. I was diagnosed as depressed for a very long time with clinical, whatever the definition for depression is. I forget the exact technicalities of it now, because I don't identify with that anymore. But I did for a really long time. And, I went through various different struggles. I had an eating disorder for many years. I used to cut myself because that was a way to sort of relieve some of the internal, making the internal external, I guess you would say. I attempted suicide a couple different times when I was younger. like early teen years. It was just, everything seemed so empty and so pointless to me. And it wasn't until I discovered drugs that I found an outlet for all of that. What I didn't realize was actually anger. It was hopelessness, it was anger, it was fear, right? Because fear underlies pretty much everything. This fear of like, what is the point? Like, I have no point, I have no purpose. And I can see now, looking back and understanding, like now that I do feel as though I have a purpose, like what that's given me in terms of my mental health and in terms of my just everything. Because that was a big part of it, is I didn't feel like I had a purpose. The world didn't feel like it had a purpose. Nothing felt like it had a purpose. So like, why am I here? And it wasn't until I found something that made me feel better about being here that I was able to feel okay with being here. And that was substances for a very long time. For about 10 years of my life, from the age of 15 till the age of 25, I used substances pretty much every day in one form or another, sometimes much more intensely than at other times. But that was sort of the guiding force of my life. That was the thing that I found. Before I found the truth, I became more acquainted with the truth of who I am as a divine spiritual being, and I found that connection. That was the thing. That was the thing that got me through, that I connected to. That was almost like my God, I guess you would say. Like, I became very dependent on that. And just the way, for me, it was sort of like, it made life feel magical too, because I knew, like, something inside of me knew that life was magical. But I didn't understand how to get in touch with that magic. I didn't know where to find it. I didn't know that it was in here the whole time. I didn't know that it was everywhere, right? Because I just couldn't see it. I couldn't see what I couldn't see. And so I created artificial magic through, manipulating all of the hormones and all of the neural pathways and the different chemicals in my brain. Like, that was the way that I found magic. And I also found a sense of comfort. I felt a sense of peace. I felt a sense of belonging, because I wasn't somebody who felt like they belonged for a very long time. Even I went through periods in my childhood where I had no friends whatsoever. I went through periods where I did have close friends and formed very close bonds with them. But then I also went through periods where it felt like I was that friend that all the other little girls would sort of like turn on and sort of was like the target for their own inner frustration and their own feelings of not belonging. I think because there was something different about me that I can see, that I always felt. I feel like maybe they felt it too, and so it was easier, because nobody wants to feel different when they're little. When they're young, they want to fit in. They want to feel like they belong. And so I can see now, even as I'm saying this, the way that if there's somebody who really exemplifies that, it's easy to turn those feelings and those fears within yourself on that person. And so I think that's a little bit of part of what happened there, was that was the experience. And so I went through a lot of periods of really not feeling like I belonged, not feeling like I fit in. And then I found a way to fit in. I found a way to belong. I found a way to not care about that anymore. I think that's one of the things that drugs gave me for a long time, was like, I just didn't care. Like, you don't like me, that's fine. It was that kind of energy. I'll find people who do. I'll find people who do the things that I do and are sort of in the same framework, and I'll spend time with them. And if they end up not liking me, that's fine too, because I have the thing that always likes me. That's how I felt. It was like, I have this thing that will always be there for me. Like, yes, I need money, but as long as I have that, I can have this thing. And so it was a relationship that I developed with these substances that helped to give me that sense of like, life is okay. Things are okay. I'm okay. And I know I can live in my own skin. Even though I was really constantly detaching myself from myself, I didn't understand that, and I didn't realize that. There was this disconnect where I felt like I was getting to know myself, and I was creating the self that I wanted to be. And so I've been doing and getting into some work recently and reclaiming those parts of my soul essence that I sort of cast aside as I moved into this different role and this different persona that I held for a really long time. It was like I abandoned that part of me that everybody else abandoned, that part of me that everybody else didn't like, that part of me that was that different and unique in that certain way. I kind of cast her aside. And so I'm in this process of bringing her and integrating her back into me and loving her and honoring her, right? And so that's part of the journey. That's part of this healing journey. That's part of my shadow, is this aspect of me that I was ashamed of, that I didn't want to associate with, that I considered weak, that I considered less than, because that's what people had considered me. And so it's that process of integration, which is part of this healing work that we do. And I'm just now really beginning to work with that. I had a soul retrieval recently where that aspect of me returned to me. And so when we have an aspect of ourselves that returns to us, it's our job to honor and nurture that aspect of us, to make it feel safe. It will only come back if it feels as though it will be safe. And then it's our responsibility to show it that that's true. And that's how we integrate it back into us fully. And so I'm in that process right now. And it was really interesting to see the aspects of my soul that had left, right, that had sort of splintered off from my essence, and these different moments of trauma within my life, and these different trauma that a lot of my trauma was self-inflicted. I inflicted it on myself, and I did kind of understand that I was doing that, actually. It was, and I think that's part of what this aspect of my inner child is mad about, is that I knew that I was doing it and I did it anyway. I was willing to do that. And so I'm trying to think of where I was trying to go with that. It's this aspect of me, right? And so throughout this whole experience, right, I did connect with like-minded people. And it was really interesting because I would become interested in spirituality. I would buy, like I said, books on the chakras. I got intrigued by Reiki. I found the book The Secret at some time in my early 20s, and I was just blown away by it. And really, it started putting me in touch with that magic. And it started planting those seeds that were like, there's magic that can be found in other places, in other ways. But it's like I was so fully immersed in my own experience and sort of trapped in that energy. Because remember, addiction is a consciousness. This is one thing that I've come to realize, is it is a consciousness. And so at this point in my life, I have actually transcended and moved beyond addiction consciousness. But at that time, it very much strongly had a hold of me. And so I was still kind of trapped in that. But I would find friends who were interested, and we would talk about all of these different spiritual concepts, especially once psychedelics were introduced and those became a thing. Like, that was a really fun way to tap into that aspect. But it was sort of the darker energies of the darker substances that really sort of had a grip on me and had a hold on me, especially in those later years of my life. And so my clean date, as you would say in some of the doctrines and groups that I was involved in through my late 20s, is actually November 11th, 2011. So on 11/11/11, which I didn't understand now is the Universal Awakening Code. I didn't understand then. I knew the date was significant when I woke up that day, and I didn't put a substance in my body, and I continued along that trajectory. I just thought it was cool. I was like, oh, that's weird, 11/11/11. But now I can see that as very significant and very cool. And so that was the beginning of my real awakening journey, my true awakening journey. And the beginning of that journey was just releasing myself from the addiction consciousness so that I could then expand into a different consciousness. It was like relearning who I was. And learning and understanding the reasons that I felt the need to cut myself off from myself, detach from myself, become a whole different self, really, because that's what I did. And there was a lot of attachment to that old self and that old identity that I had created for myself. And it took many years just to unwind that and just to release that persona and that identity, because there were a lot of aspects of that identity that I really liked, because she was a lot of things that I never was when I was younger, that I wanted to be, or I saw her as that. And so I was very, very attached to that. And that was my first ego death, was learning to let go of that person and learning that I could hold on to the aspects of her that I liked without having to hold on to the rest. I could sort of transcend the rest of that, transmute that energy, and still hold on to the good things, the beautiful things about me, the things that I had learned. And that experience was really helpful for me, because all of these experiences, and the reason that I'm talking about all of this is because this is what helps us. Like, our struggles are part of what help prepare us for our life path. It's kind of like when we talk about Chiron, the wounded healer, right? It's like our deepest wounds become the things that enable us to help. as we heal them, we are then able to show others how to heal them. And so it's a very powerful energy. Our traumas and our struggles are very powerful when we can heal from them, right? When we're no longer attached to that energy, when it no longer dictates our lives, right? It no longer defines us, but we can gain the wisdom from that. We can really help others. And so there's a lot of things that I've been through that I can understand. I know what it feels like to be hopeless. I know what it feels like to be diagnosed with different mental health things. I know what it feels like to want to die, to not want to live anymore, to not feel as though I belong, to have an external thing controlling me, and to not even understand that I'm under its control, right? And we can see this in a larger scheme coming out in the world when we look at the systems that have controlled us, that have controlled our minds, and most people don't even realize that they're being controlled because that control is so insidious, and it's so, those hooks are so deep. And that's what addiction is, right? It's all addiction. It's all different types of consciousnesses. The fear consciousness that we're moving out of is a type of consciousness, just as the addiction consciousness is a type of consciousness. And they're very linked in, they're very similar. And that's why our society is trained to have addictions, right? We're all, many people, until we begin to really grow and evolve, we are all addicted to something, right? Whether that is drugs, whether that's food, whether that's sex, whether that's money, whether that's shopping, whether that's validation and relationships. There is something, most people especially in American society, and I think in a lot of other societies, are trained to be addicted, to live in that addiction consciousness. And I was addicted to many, many of those things all at the same time. And it's that addictive personality that they call, right? It was like I was searching and I kept trying to fill. There was something within me. There was a void that needed to be filled. And it didn't matter how much I put in there. It wasn't enough. And now I'm coming to, the more I allow spirit into my life, the more I allow my angels and my guides and my own soul into my life, the more I invite these aspects, these different fragments and pieces of my soul back into my life, the more that feels full, right? And it doesn't feel full all the time. There are still some days where I feel very empty. And that's where I know that there's more work to do. There's always more work to be done. But it was that process of first learning all of that, first learning everything that didn't work, and first like coming to understand like this entire journey, this entire struggle of mine was a spiritual struggle. My addiction was a spiritual struggle. It was a spiritual void that I was trying to fill. And we all experience this in different ways. And so as I moved through this healing process, as I moved through getting to know myself better, learning how to care for myself, learning how to love myself, right? Learning how to live without being a slave to something, or at least starting that process, right? Because as I was explaining, like we're all slaves to different things at different times, even if it's just our belief systems, even if it's, different things like that, right? But I become freer and freer every day, and I learn more and more ways to become free. And as I learn those ways, I then feel it is part of my purpose to share those with other people. And so that's what this channel's all about. That's what the different services that I offer, the Belvaspata, the Theta healing, all of that, that's what it is. That's what we're working towards. That's what I'm wanting to share with others, because that's what's helped me. And so that's sort of where we're getting to in this story here is this process of once I became more stabilized, once I I went through that initial process of those initial years of shedding and working through and beginning to release myself from that addiction consciousness. I started getting into and thinking about, it became less of like, how am I going to live? Right? Like, how do normal people live, right? How do they work at this crappy job and they somehow pay their bills and they go through these motions of life. And it was like, at some point I became stabilized doing those things. And then I was like, I got to that same place where I was like, there has to be more. Like, there has to be more. If this is all there is, this is not enough for me. Right? And that is part of that mentality of nothing ever being enough, right? And so I have to address that. But I also have to acknowledge that I have to find, if it's not enough, that means that there is more out there for me. if what I'm doing is not enough, there is more. And so I find that, but I find that in healthy ways today. And so that's what I was learning how to do. And so I looked at things and I said, okay, so what else is there? What did I used to be interested in? What used to draw me in? And so I started looking at all of these different healing modalities and these different things and trying to figure out what is the best fit for me. Somewhere along this journey as well, I had gone through the cycle of being on and off of antidepressants and different things like that throughout my life. And I got to a period where I really wanted to be off of those drugs. I didn't want to take them anymore. I didn't want to be dependent on them. I didn't want them to have that hold over me. And so I started experimenting with different things that would help. With the anxiety is a big thing that I deal with and I've struggled with, that I'm working with. Anxiety, depression, all of these different things, right? And depression, I think for many people, is simply a lack of fulfillment. And there's much more to it than that. I'm not trying to downplay anything. I'm saying for me, I think that's a lot of what mine is and was. Mostly was. There are still periods where I sink into that lower vibration level, where that depression energy resides. It's sort of like a wave, but the wave isn't like this anymore. It's more subtle, right? And so, but for me, it was, all right, so what can I do instead? And so I got into a bunch of different things. I got into guided meditations, affirmation meditations with binaural beats and things like that. I got into EFT tapping, which is really simple. You can do it yourself. I absolutely recommend it. It sort of quiets the fight or flight response. So you tap on specific pressure points as you say certain phrases and you bring up certain memories or certain things, and it trains the brain to disengage from that trauma response. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty interesting. So I utilized that. I worked with that. I found Hay House. They do this World Summit every year, which is really interesting. And so I started getting into these other things and playing with these other things. I moved very briefly to Los Angeles, California for a little bit of time. And before this journey took full effect, and I had a really interesting experience while I was out there. And at the end of that journey, I went to a seminar in San Diego by Mike Dooley. Mike Dooley, yes, I believe he teaches manifesting and stuff like that. So I went to that seminar, and that was super fun. And so that got me, I think that I may have learned about Hay House through that. I'm not really sure. But I was really fired up from that, and I came back. I moved back to New England, where I live now, and it was the middle of winter. It was very cold. It was very depressing. I didn't leave the house for pretty much the whole winter because I had gone from like 85 degrees and sunny in January and February to just very, very cold. I think it was one of the snowiest winters in the past 10 years that Maine had, or New England had. There we go, whatever. And so I live in Maine. See, there I go trying to be, sort of hide things. This is a big exercise for me, and really being open and being honest and sharing my truth by sharing this story with you guys. This is more for me than it really is for even any of you. But yeah, so I moved out there. I moved back. It was very cold. I was very depressed. I was not enjoying it. And so I felt that creeping back in, and I wanted to take care of that in a way other than medication. And so the EFT tapping really helped. Some of these different things really helped. And I started realizing and understanding that the key was to create a life that I didn't feel the need to escape from. Because that's a little bit of what my move to California was too, was it was an escape. And so it's like, how can I be good right where I am? Right? How can I be good in here? And how can my external reality be something that I want to enjoy, that I want to partake in, where I'm excited to get out of bed every day because I want to see what the day is going to have in store for me, instead of like dreading it and hitting the snooze button like 25 times in a row. Today, I set an alarm sometimes just out of habit, but I never need it because I wake up before my alarm. My body actually naturally knows when I need to get up. It gets me up at around a certain time every day. But if there's something specific I need to do, my body will wake up a half an hour before I set my alarm, whatever time that is. It's really fascinating and interesting. And it's like, I really enjoy my life today. And yes, I still struggle with some of these things, this hopelessness, this apathy, right? Some of this stuff, but I move through it, and I keep going, and I keep working and healing and growing and doing things that have meaning to me. And that meaning is what gets me out of bed every day. But I'm kind of fast forwarding a little bit. And so I just wanted to build a life that I didn't feel the need to escape from, that felt good, that I wanted to wake up for and participate in every day. And so I started doing a journey of that. And I started looking at all of these other healing modalities and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I'd always been interested in Reiki. I think I had gotten a couple of Reiki sessions before in my life. And so I was like, all right, this isn't super expensive. It's the way that my original Reiki master, I've had two. My original one did it. It was a 3-week, 3 hours each week for 3 weeks class. And I was like, that's an easy commitment. I can do that. We'll see what happens from there. And so I went and I got attuned to Reiki. And I remember the night that I was sitting out on the steps in front of my building, and I was doing what we call it is the 3 diamonds meditation. And so I was holding my hands at the 3 energy centers. Traditional Japanese Reiki utilizes the Japanese energetic system. So there are 3 major energy centers that are worked with. And so the meditation works with those energy centers. And as I was doing this meditation, all of this emotion welled up in me. And it was the first time in my life, I think, that I had felt that it was like I remembered why I was here. It was like the energy felt like home. And I had never really felt like I fully felt home. And it was just such a beautiful and transformative experience for me. I was like, this is why I'm here. And I'm sharing this because this is what will happen as you start being led down the road to your purpose, right? Which for a lot of us, it starts with that healing journey. Desiring to heal ourselves, desiring to heal our own trauma, to grow and evolve, right? And the ways that we do that. And then these experiences will happen that we just resonate deeply with, and we know. It's like we recognize it. I recognized it, and I was like, oh, this is me. This is part of my purpose. This is why I'm here. This is connecting me. And I felt connected in a way that I never had before. So I really went with that, and I learned more Reiki. I went through a very intense detoxification process. I'm a Taurus sun. I detox, like I'm very physical. And so sometimes that detox, that purging process, that releasing process takes on a very physical form for me. And so I had a lot of very physical things that happened. It was very intense, that first Reiki attunement, much more intense than it typically is for people. I honestly try not to share my story too much, get into too deep into details with it with my students now. I am a Reiki master teacher now, because I don't want to scare them. Like the healing crisis, it's a possibility, but the way it happened to me is not a way that it typically happens. But it was like a whole bunch of stuff. I got sick with a whole bunch of stuff at once. I developed skin conditions that I had never had before. It was very intensive. It was very traumatic, really, but I moved through it, and I still continued to pursue the Reiki afterwards because I knew that was a path that was meant for me. And I really built a relationship with that energy, and I began building an even deeper relationship with myself and with spirit, and really learning how to connect in with that energy again, right? And I say again because I always knew. And even throughout my life at earlier points, I was one of those people where if I had a friend who was having a hard time, I would naturally just put my hand on their shoulder and imagine that I was sending them soothing energy, and watch as their demeanor would sort of shift. And it was like I always channeled energy, and I always worked with that because we all know how to do all of this. These classes, these attunements, these different things help us to tap into specific frequencies of energy, but they help us to do things that we've always known how to do all along. It just provides us with a framework to help us remember. And so that's what Reiki did, was it helped me to remember. And from there, I started pursuing different things. And at one point in my journey, I then decided that I wanted a spiritual teacher. I, for many, many years, participated in 12-step recovery. That was part of my recovery from my addiction. I was very immersed in that for a long time because I needed that community. I needed that structure. I needed stuff to do, right? And a way to feel like I was being of service and giving back, because as I worked in 12-step, I realized that I really did have a passion for that. I really loved helping other people. It made me feel really good. And so that was also a thing that helped me to find my purpose. And I thought back then that my purpose was going to be to help people through the 12 steps. And I soon saw that wasn't necessarily the case, because as time went along, I started to not fully identify with all of the the doctrine of 12-step, and I started just sort of being pulled away from that. That wasn't where my path was leading me ultimately, but it really did help. It was a great stepping stone in a lot of different ways. But the Reiki really helped to open me up. And so not long after that, I decided that I wanted to just do Reiki. And so I started a practice. I did all of the things, put all of the stuff together. I built the website. I did the Facebook page. I did the business cards. I rented out the office space. I quit my job, actually. I worked in the recovery field at the time, and it just things weren't resonating with me. I wasn't 100% invested in that, and it was very difficult for me to teach something that I didn't fully believe in anymore. And so I moved away from that. And I moved fully into and committed myself to the Reiki. And it didn't work out right away. It's a process building up that kind of business, especially back then. This was probably, I want to say 6 years ago, maybe. I'm not very good with time, probably somewhere around there. And it's more and more people are becoming interested, right? But back then, people were interested, but it still takes time to build something up like that. And I think there was still a lot more that I needed to learn and I needed to gain that I knew yet. And so eventually I ended up having to pick up some other jobs, and make money in other ways to support that and sort of do that on the side. And at some point during this journey, I decided to learn massage therapy because it made sense. It was something that more people will come for that. They'll come more consistently for that, or at least that was my thought process at the time. And so I went to school for that. I learned a little bit of this thing called polarity while I was there that works with balancing the elemental makeup within the body. So I started learning some different things. And also around this time, I decided that I needed another type of spiritual teacher. Like I had sponsors and sort of teachers within 12-step. But I wanted like a very spiritually focused teacher and a different way than what I was getting there. And so there was an eclipse, and I remember I did a ritual and I set the intention and I called their energy in. And I think it took about 18 months for that person to show up in my reality. And I did actually mention him and give a shout out to his channel at the beginning. My friend Glenn Jones, who is also my mentor, he is amazing. And so he was brought into my life. And that was another big turning point for me when I began working with him. And he began this process of teaching me how to, as he says, how to fall more deeply in love with myself and how to choose myself and also how to work with energy. He is my grandmaster for Belvaspata. I am now a Belvaspata grandmaster, and I learned that from him as well. That's the healing modality that I practice the most now. It's incredibly profound. And the process of being initiated into Belvaspata initiates an ascension process in the initiate, which is an ascension process on top of an ascension process. And so that's kind of like where things were leading to me. I started just learning more modalities and getting these different attunements and these different initiations that were shifting and changing my energy. And as they shifted and changed my energy, things came up within me. There is a gentler way to do this, which is to receive sessions from people. I didn't receive a whole lot of sessions. I received some as I was learning. But more than that, I had my energy attuned and I became initiated into these different things. And so that really brought all of the stuff up to the surface, right? It showed me a lot of the things. It was like they were just presented to me and I had to work through them. And so that's kind of how my process went. At this time that I met Glenn, my mentor. I was also going to school for massage therapy, learning polarity. I began with him this series of these shamanic healing rites called the Munaiki rites. And so I started that. I got my first 2 levels of Belvaspata. And I did all of this around the same time frame. And it was pretty intense, and it sent me into a dark night of the soul that it wasn't as intense as some of the ones I had experienced previously. So it took me a long time. It was when I started coming out of it that I realized that I had been fully in it. And so this dark night of the soul really, it was very subtle because, like I said, I didn't know that I was in it, but I was releasing a lot of things. I was addressing a lot of things. I was making some very profound shifts. And I've continued to sort of go through that process. Now I'm learning the Theta healing. I have another amazing mentor for that. Those of you who join us in the New Moon Manifesting Rituals, I do that with her. Her name's Beth Newman. She's incredible. So just people that have been sent to my path. There are other people that I work with sometimes with different things. I did some shamanic work with Candace Jones. She has a YouTube channel. She's incredible. we may do something collaborative in the future, which would be really, really cool. But she's an amazing energy. Her channel is Eyes Wide Open 1111. She does tarot, and she does a whole different bunch of types of healing things. So I've received some work from her. Like, I receive work from people, and I also work, I help, I have clients of my own now too, right? And so I learn from each and every single client that I have. I have this YouTube channel. That was an evolution for me. And this is how we can kind of tell. Our life's purpose just sort of leads us. It's like we put out, it's sort of like the reading that I did earlier today that I just posted where I said, say yes first. That's kind of what it was. It was like, I knew that I wanted a mentor, so I said yes first. And then he came to me at the perfect time when I was ready. It was like when they say the student is ready, the teacher appears. I may not have been ready right when I asked, but at the time that he came, I was ready. And then he prepared me for the next thing. And that thing prepares you for the next. And so it's like, just seeking. As soon as we begin seeking, things magically begin to fall into place. Synchronicities happen. People are introduced to us. Opportunities. Literally, sometimes, I mean, I've talked to people where books have literally fallen off the shelf onto the floor that they were meant to read. I mean, things happen in all kinds of different mysterious ways to lead us to our purpose. And that's what all sort of began happening and coalescing around this time. Around this time, what was I doing? I just lost my train of thought there. I was doing my healing work. I was adding more things to my repertoire. I was learning and growing through that process, and then learning and growing as I began to work with clients and they began to teach me things. And I noticed that I was drawing to me people that needed to learn, that were working on a lot of the same stuff that I was working on. So it's like, as I work with you guys, and this is still true, I work on me at the same time and I learn more about me. And so it's like, that's what we say, I'm always the teacher and I am always the student. And so it was quite a process. But as I was immersed in all of this, I was still I had that little bit of financial fear. And so I still wasn't ready to plant my feet firmly into my purpose, which was becoming more and more clearly defined. You know, I had other little hints as well. It was like I started teaching myself tarot. And so I would watch videos on YouTube to help myself learn. And I started teaching myself astrology. I had an astrology teacher for a little while. But my style of learning was a little bit different, and it was just with time and everything, I ended up erring more on the side of teaching myself and learning from people on YouTube, such as Nadia Shah, who many of you found me through, and different things like that, different people like that. Hannah's Elsewhere, if you guys are looking to teach yourselves astrology, she's really great, really fun, really creative, really unique, and she makes some really, really interesting videos that keep you very intrigued the whole time you're watching. So I would definitely, if you guys are teaching yourself astrology, learn that. But it's like I started learning these different things, and I decided and I realized, like, I really wanted to have a YouTube channel. I didn't admit that to anybody because I didn't know how that was going to work. I didn't think I was good enough to do that. I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. I was like, I can't just sit here and talk to people like I'm doing right now, right? Like, people aren't going to want to watch that. I have to entertain them. I have to do something. I have to learn something. And so this process of learning tarot helped me to build my intuition. Like, as you guys see me on here right now, I'm learning this as I go. I only started reading tarot, I want to say a year or two ago. 2 years ago, I think I started teaching it to myself. And then I just learned the meanings of the cards and all of that stuff, and I didn't do much with it for about another year. And so it's only been in this past year that I've really been reading cards and working with energy in that way. I'm very much the most natural way thus far in my journey that I work with energy is to be a channel of energy. That was part of why I honestly began this channel. I wanted to help people. I wanted to give them support and guidance and share my journey with them and show them that they weren't alone. But I also wanted to present them with and offer them the modalities that I practice, especially the Belvaspata, because it was designed for the ascension process, and it has changed my life so dramatically. Like, the major shifts that have happened in my life happened in these past few years. As I was learning that, as I was receiving the Moon Eye Key, learning the Belvaspata, like, these things were extremely transformative for me, and I wanted to share that, and I wanted a vehicle to be able to get that out to more people. And so those were the main reasons that I wanted to start the YouTube channel. But I just felt really drawn to it. And I didn't know why. I didn't know how to go about it. So I'm trying to figure out these different things that I can do. How can I get people engaged? What can I talk about? What am I interested in that I can share with people? And I started seeing how it all fit together and how it all worked together. And that's ultimately what you see on this channel now, as I'm still learning and finding. And that's why I want to see what you guys like and what you guys are interested in, because I'm still finding my place and my flow with all of that. And I'm so grateful for each and every one of you that's been along on this journey. There are some of you who remember my original channel that I had with my friend Kayla. It was called Intuitive Insights with Kayla and Cassia. And so I'm going to get into that as well. This is all, all the ways, the little ways that things unfold. So I knew I wanted to do that. I didn't have quite the confidence. I was learning the skills. And so what it did was, when I decided I wanted to be on YouTube, that was another thing, that was another aspect, another layer of my purpose. And that, just as learning to work with clients made me step out of my comfort zone and learn and grow, this did too, because I had to learn things I didn't know yet. I had to do things that I wasn't 100% good at yet in my eyes. Being a Virgo moon, I am very perfectionistic. I like to be the best at everything that I do. I like to know and feel 100% confident in something before I offer it, before I share it, before I put it out there. And I really had to, especially being on YouTube has really forced me to get over that. Because if I waited until I was perfect, I would never make a single video. I wouldn't do anything, right? And so I had to really learn and understand that and let go of that perfectionism. And let go of that need to sort of be presented a certain way, right? That's a huge thing that I'm working through right now. So it's a lot of this different stuff. So everything, when we start finding our purpose, it's like the point of all of that I was saying is like it whispers to us. It's those things that we resonate with, that we feel drawn to. And then we engage with those, and that opens up doors to something else, and that leads us to something else. And it always pushes us outside of our comfort zone. It's designed that way to help us grow, to bring up our fears, to bring up our blocks so that we can move through them. And so there are a lot of fears and a lot of blocks that I had to address in order to be comfortable working with clients, right? In order to then become comfortable, like speaking in front of people through a forum like this, without worrying about being judged, without worrying about whether people were going to, comment and tell me that I'm stupid, all of these different things, right? And honestly, I get very little of that, which is really, really cool. I think the energy that we put out attracts the energy that we get back. And so, very, very rarely do I receive anything like that, which is really interesting. But that was a fear, right? That was a fear. And there were just all kinds of fears that came up that I had to work through. And so I was blessed with a very beautiful soul who I did mention. Her name is Kayla. She has a channel as well on YouTube, Kayla Divine Channel. And we have our original channel that we started together. I met her, and she was we were both tapped into different aspects of our spiritual gifts. It was very almost like twin flame feeling type dynamic that the two of us had together, where we really pushed each other to grow. And we were both strong in different areas, and we became more activated in those areas as we started working together and building a friendship together. And this is a whole story for a whole different video. But she and I originally connected. My friend and I were hosting a healing circle at a recovery center. A place where people in recovery can get together for support and stuff like that. And so we were doing healing circles there. Where we would have an open conversation about spirituality, different things like that, what was going on with us, and we would do little mini healings for people. And so she showed up to that, and she and I connected because we were very much in the whole twin flame situation and journey at that time. And so we had never met somebody in real life who also identified with that and felt that they were experiencing that. And so we really connected like that. And she and I became very close, and I saw she did a lot of readings, and I had sort of started teaching myself, and then stopped really working with the cards that much. Like I did some readings for myself and stuff like that, but I didn't do a whole lot of it. And she was much more adept at that. She had already started a YouTube channel. She was doing that stuff. And so it started with me encouraging her to work on her channel more. And then one day, as I was actually in the shower, I think, all of a sudden I'm shampooing my hair, and I'm thinking, I'm like, wait a minute, why don't she and I do a channel together? She's really good at reading cards. I channel energy. I can just sit here and channel energy to the viewers while she's doing the reading, and she can offer readings to our subscribers, and I can offer healings. And maybe we can do that together somehow. And so I presented this idea to her, and she loved it. And that's how Intuitive Insights was born. And we really worked on that really hard together. I got very, very into it, more into it than kind of more into it in some ways, just because it was part of my dream. And so we started building that up together. And then coronavirus happened, and this was a huge shift. This past year has been a massive shift for me. It's really pushed me deeper into my purpose and my potential. And so I am incredibly grateful for everything that I experienced. 2020 was one of the most profound years of my life, one of the most transformational. And I think a lot of us can say that. Because at that point, I was working as a bartender, which some people who knowing someone with a history of addiction, it might be surprising that was a job. It didn't bother me. I was, reasonably all right at it. I didn't mind making drinks. I wasn't 100%, that energy of the bar life didn't 100% resonate with me, but there was still that aspect of me that I'm still releasing, that I haven't fully let go of, right? That wilder aspect of me, that persona that we talked about at the beginning of the video. There's still a piece of her in me. And so I enjoyed sort of having an outlet for that. It was, good money. The situation, I definitely think that I was meant to come to the place that I was and have the experiences. There were little synchronicities. I mean, I won't get into all of that, but I wasn't that I wasn't meant to be there. It's just that there was a time when I no longer was. And I wasn't ready to let that go yet. I wasn't ready to let go of the security. I wasn't ready to let go of the people. I wasn't ready to let go of that aspect of myself. And I wasn't sure 100% confident that I could just do what I loved. And so I kind of convinced myself that maybe I didn't want to do healing full time or any of that, right? That wasn't necessarily what I wanted, which of course now that I have it, of course it is. But it was that fear piece, right? That fear of not being good enough, of not being able, of remembering that first time that I tried when I started that Reiki business and it didn't quite work out. And so I stuck with it. And then the pandemic hit and everything shut down and I was no longer working. Kayla ended up having to move away, because of family things. And so she and I were separated. And so I wasn't alone because I had a friend that came to stay with me, a very dear friend who I love very much. But we weren't together, and I was like, I don't know, we put so much energy into this channel, like I cannot let it die. I don't want to. And so Kayla said, of course, keep making videos if you want to do that, like please do. And so she was going through her own dark night of the soul, her own transformation, and needed to pull back her energy from all of that. And I threw my energy 100% into building that YouTube channel. And it was a really beautiful experience for me because it helped me to become confident. And my original thought when she and I started our channel was that I would just sort of be in the background and she would be in the forefront, kind of like as a supporting role. And what it became from the very first time we did a video was the two of us working together 100% cooperatively with that 50-50 energy. And so that really helped me to gain confidence. It really helped me to just to become more comfortable. And then when she left, it was that scary thing again of like, can I do this without her? But I did. I showed up and I did it, and it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. And there are some people on this channel who were on that original channel, and I have so much love for you, having been here from the beginning of that journey. But it was so beautiful, and it helped me to grow in so many ways. And the connection, like I still to this day, when I get contacted by people that live in other parts of the world, other countries, and it floors me, the way that we're able to connect, and just the ways that technology and different things can bring us together, right? It really it just gave me so much. It gave me so much. This channel now gives me so much. I ultimately began my own channel just because Kayla and I still weren't able to get together, even when we were able to travel a bit more freely. It wasn't, her heart and her energy wasn't in it at the time, and mine was. And so I started this channel back in July, I think it is, the beginning of July. And I've been working with this ever since. And so it's been a really interesting journey. It's been that was the gift, right? The gift was that I got to have all of that stuff that I was still a little bit attached to, that I wasn't ready to let go of, removed for me. And so I got to focus 100%. I focused on the channel, and I slowly began to gain more clients, and I was able to open up physically again as well. And I was able to focus on that and focus on just doing what I love. And now that's all that I do. I don't need anything else. I am 100% provided for through the clients that I work with, through the donations that you guys make on here, through the students that I teach. That's me living the dream, right? This is that next phase of the dream. And it's when I devoted, it was interesting because I got a reading from a woman, another amazing YouTuber actually. Her name is Miria Azaria is what she goes by. I'm trying to remember I can't remember what the name of her channel currently is. Intuitive Tarot Coach, I believe. She's awesome. And so we were working together, and she gave me a reading, and she said that my guides and my angels were saying, like, if you devote yourself 100% to the Belvaspata, to doing your healing work, that will provide for you. They want you to put more of your energy and more of your focus there. And I had the opportunity to do that. And I started to realize, holy shit, the things that I say are real. Like, when you are fully committed to that, and when you know your worth, because that was the thing before, I didn't know my worth. I knew that Reiki was helpful to people, but I didn't really fully understand how profound the work that I was doing could be. And when I started working more with the Belvaspata, and I started then having people come back to me. And it would be funny too, because it would be in conversations, like it would be 3 to 6 months later, and they'd be like, their life would have shifted so much. And sometimes they would be like, it's really weird because it all started happening around that time that you gave me that session. Or they'd be like, or maybe they wouldn't put it together, but I'd like think about the timing while they were talking to me, and I'd be like, oh, that's so interesting. And I started being like, wow, like, this is profound. The difference that this is making in people's lives is profound. And I started realizing the worth of that. I started realizing the value of what I had to offer. And when I realized the value of what I had to offer, when I realized my own value, and I started owning that more, and when I really became willing to dedicate myself fully to that, all the doors started opening. All the opportunities started coming through. And it was literally like the magic that I talk about, that I wasn't sure it was like I believed in it for other people, but it was like I still didn't believe enough to really get rid of the training wheels. And so Spirit got rid of those training wheels for me with the coronavirus, and it let me go my own path. It let me ride. And at some point, those training wheels, I consciously decided to take those off because I knew I didn't need them anymore. And I have been 100% supported ever since. And it's been so incredibly amazing. And it's like, this is just the beginning of the unfoldment of my purpose. There's more to it. I don't know what it is yet. I don't know. All I know is the next thing to do. And so I do the next thing to do. The next thing that resonates. The next inspired idea that comes through. The next fear that comes up that I have to work through, right? This is what I know, and this is what I see, and this is what I do. And I just continue to trust that purpose will evolve as I evolve. And that's what that message that I want to share with all of you is, your purpose will evolve as you evolve. It starts with our trauma. It starts with our early experiences that shape us. It starts with the healing from that, the ways that we heal from that, the ways that we grow, the ways that we empower ourselves, and then where that leads us, what that opens up for us, what that teaches us, and just paying attention to that and flowing with that and growing with that and allowing things to evolve as they're meant to evolve. They will evolve organically. And we'll know, right? Because it's like, I know when there's a certain thing that I'm meant to do next, I know what that thing is. And then the fear comes up. And then I have to move through the fear. And when I move through that fear, then I progress to a new level of that journey. And then something else comes up. And then those fears come up. And then I move through those fears. And it just goes and goes and goes. And where it goes from here, I have no idea. But I can tell you that it has absolutely been one hell of a journey. I'm sure it will continue to be one hell of a journey. And I am just so incredibly grateful to be able to share this journey with all of you guys. And to have been able to share some more of who I am with you. that's where I'm being led right now, is to share more of who I am. And so, like I said, this video is almost more for me than it is for you guys, because I really get to be, it's taking off that mask like we saw in the reading today. It's showing my vulnerability, showing that I go through these same struggles, talking about my struggles, talking about my experience, and just hoping that can gain some hope from people. But more than that, it's like me trusting you enough to open up to you, to tell more of my own story, to tell more of my own truth, and to really share that and speak that, so that maybe you have the courage to do that as well. It can be scary. Like I said, I like to keep things close to my chest. I'm a private person. I don't talk a whole lot about my personal life and what's going on with that. I feel like that's for me, and I don't like to share that. I like to, it's a protection mechanism, right? And so I'm learning how to not do that. I'm learning how to be more open. I'm learning how to share more. And I think that was the original intention when Kayla and I started our original channel, even, was to share our personal experience to help people through what they're going through. And so I really want to be able to do that. I want to be able to connect with you guys even more deeply, to share this journey on a deeper and more profound level. And so that was sort of the intention today, was just to practice opening up more, to practice just trying something out. We'll try it out. We're going to do, if you guys like the story time video, we may do more of these. I may tell you different stories about different things that I'm going through. I may talk about it. I may do it more like a spiritual vlog, maybe, where I'm talking about what's going on in my spiritual journey right now. I'm not sure. I'm going to play around with it. We're going to see how you guys feel, how this resonates, what you're thinking about this. I know it's been a little over an hour now. It said 1:01, an hour and 1 minute when I just looked at the time. So those ones and those zeros, right? So, I mean, if you guys watched all of this, thank you. Like I said, it was more for me than anything else, but we may play with this. I thought this would be a good way to give everyone sort of a basis to work from as I'm going through and talking about my own journey, maybe. And just to really like take off that mask, take off that protective armor, and just let you guys see a little bit more of who I am and what this journey has been about for me so far, which has really been about learning how to love myself, learning how to be vulnerable, learning how to embrace what makes me unique and what makes me different. It was that feeling of being alone and being different, and I've been working on that a lot lately, and I'll probably do a whole separate video about that if you guys are into these kind of videos, talking about that, because I've been shown that is a big part of what my purpose is, actually, is showing people and teaching people how to be unique and how to celebrate, or not how to be unique. You can't teach how to be unique, right? That's what makes you unique, is that it can't be taught. It's you. But how to show and express that uniqueness and own that uniqueness and own that thing that makes you special, right? Because we are all these beautifully individual sparks, these beautifully individual snowflakes that came through in a Theta session that I did, where I was gifted the download of snowflakes with a creator's definition of a snowflake, and how each and every one is perfect and unique and beautiful in its own way, and they never repeat. Right? So that's what each and one of us are, is these beautiful individual snowflakes. So teaching people that and showing people that. But first, I have to be willing to really put myself out there, to really show who I uniquely am, and to step more deeply into that every day. And so that's what this journey is about. And this is very much what many of us are journeying through as we enter this age of Aquarius, is this journey of who am I? What makes me special? What makes me unique? What do I uniquely have to offer? And we don't know what we uniquely have to offer until we know who we uniquely are. And yes, it's a lifelong journey of peeling away everything that we're not, so that we can more authentically be who we are. But that is what it's all about. And so I may do a video on that and sort of that journey as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope that some of it resonated. Whoever it's meant to reach and whoever is going to enjoy it and benefit from it will watch it. And yeah, just keep letting me know the things that you want to hear from me, the things that you want to learn about. If it's something that I know something about, I will do my best. If it's not, then maybe I've considered possibly seeking out other people that I can find to do videos on here talking about, that know more about this stuff, that I can have on and sort of talk with, that can explain some of these different things. Like I know somebody wanted a video on the different extraterrestrial races, like the Syrians and the Palladians and the Arcturians. I don't know a ton about them. The way that I work with them is more abstractly. They come through in readings. I don't necessarily always even know that it's them who's coming through. I haven't delved too deeply into that myself, but I know that there are people that are. So maybe I'll find one of those people for you guys. Just tell me, what do you want to learn about? What do you want to know about? And we'll get into that more. What kind of videos do you want to see? And we'll just play around with this. This channel is it's for me and my own personal growth, but it's also for you guys. Like I make these videos for you. And so I want to know what you want, what has value to you. And that, because that's what it's all about, is what has value to you. And this experience, this connection that I have with each and every single one of you is what has value to me. So I love you all. I appreciate you all. And I will talk to you very, very soon.